The Powers Project.
Mark, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm very well, mate, and I've been looking forward to this all day. I really, really have.
I'm glad you have. I really enjoyed being on your podcast, and I knew, as I told you then, I wanted to have you on mine because you're just such a great guy to talk to. You're such an entertaining conversationalist as well. So I just generally had a good time with you on your show, and I knew I wanted you on mine, and I knew when I had you on my show what I wanted to talk about. And the topic today is going to be the top 10 bands of all time. And the reason I wanted to talk to you, because you're across the pond, you're, as they say, you live in England. And so I've always wondered if the British have a different opinion about the top 10 bands compared to Americans, or if we're pretty much, agreed upon with who the top 10 bands are. And so I took the time to write mine down. I know there's going to be a lot of people upset and a lot of people shocked, including you, I'm sure. But I'm sure I'll probably feel that way as well when I don't hear my favorite band in there. So,
well, I've got a problem because you said 10, the top 10 bands of all time. I'm currently on 17. I don't know how
wow.
to narrow it down, man.
Obviously, I had to put honorable mentions, and people are going to go, "What? They're they're going to swear they should be in the top 10." And again, I have to specify these are personal opinions, so it doesn't matter what my opinion is. It's just mine. I may have people who agree with me. There are probably a lot more who disagree with me and think I'm a jerk or whatever. I don't mean to be a jerk. I'm just giving you my honest opinion, and I'll even tell you why. So with that being said, um tell me how you're doing. I mean, before we jump into this, and what you've been up to since we last talked.
Mate, I'm feeling fantastic, actually. And what haven't I been doing? I went through 2 weeks of just not really. I got COVID, and after COVID, I was just like, I couldn't be asked to do anything. I just didn't feel myself. I was before COVID, I'd lost 19 pounds in weight, and I was on a proper fitness, binge, and I just didn't feel like doing anything. I was very just wanted to eat and just sit around and do nothing. And I wouldn't say it hit me for six in the sense that I was feeling poorly. I just couldn't be asked to do anything. So, I kicked myself up the butt there last week, and I'd done a bit of meditation, and I sat down and I just said, look, Mark, we got to change things here. I don't want to go putting all my weight back on. And I'm feeling loads better now. And the problem is with me is I've got so many hobbies. I compare myself to Zebedee, off the Magic Roundabout, bouncing around all of the time. And I'm one of those characters that likes jumping from one hobby to the other hobby, doing this, doing that. And there's people say to me, how the hell have you got enough time in the day to do all of your things? And I just say, I make time.
Well, when you enjoy it, it's a lot easier to make time than when it's something you don't enjoy. So I completely understand that. And I understand having different hobbies. I find, though, if I don't stick to one, then nothing gets done. And then, like, I have a little fun in each one, but nothing really gets accomplished when I do it that way. So I try to stick to one and get done what I need to get done and then move on.
I'm just all over the place. I've got like 101 different Instagram accounts. That's the hardest thing.
Oh,
Keeping
man.
up with
Yeah.
that, like my social medias, because you learn so much from social media, don't you? I mean, I feel that you've got to set up a different, Instagram page for a different hobby, because I've learned so much through talking to people and building communities about different topics. So, I've learned so much from social media. So when people say that it's a bad thing, I just disagree with them. I think social media is a really good thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it has its bad parts, but it also has its good parts, and it's how you use it and it's how you look at it. And I didn't even think about this until you just said that. But, in my podcast, I'm sure if I broke it up into different groups, like when I'm talking about politics, or if I'm talking about religion, or I'm talking about sex, I have different Instagram channels. I'm sure that if I broke them up into categories like that, it would probably do much better. So I'll have to talk to my guy about that. I'm sure that's what he wants is more work. So, well, good to hear. Yeah. So when I came on your show, you were just getting over being sick, and now that you're coming on my show, as I mentioned before the show, that I never get sick, and yet here I am sick. And so I'm just getting over being sick with you joining my show. So I definitely want to have you on my show again, but I don't want to get sick to have that happen. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, no
So,
worries, man.
all right, so let's jump into our top 10 bands. Now, I wrote mine down, and I probably did write them pretty much in the order that I would put them in.
Oh,
Maybe
crikey.
I'll change a couple here, but so let's start off with yours. Let's start off with your number 10.
I didn't know that it had to be in some sort of order here, mate. Because, oh, geez, I would say number 10 would be, and I don't think that you're going to like this too much. I think it's going to be the Eagles. Just simply because, I mean, I got into liking the Eagles because my dad was a huge fan, right? And I loved a lot of their stuff, but I never went out and bought an album. If I get where I'm coming from, my dad had the album, and I would listen to him play it in the car or at home or on the stereo. So it wasn't a band that I went out and got the album and fell hugely in love with. But I respect their music. I understand the music, and it's a band that's very special to me just because of my dad, because my dad's no longer with me anymore. So when I hear a song like Take It Easy or, Hotel California, it floods loads of memories in. So I would say that the Eagles have got to be in my top 10 for that reason. So, yeah.
Okay.
And I know that's going to piss you off a little bit because they're one of your favorite bands, aren't they?
Yeah, they are my favorite band. It doesn't piss me off because I wasn't even expecting you to put the Eagles in there. And I'm glad to see that you did because even if it was out of respect for your father, he had great taste, by the way. So I have even though the Eagles are my favorite band, I actually have them listed at number 5. And the reason is I look at the band as a whole. Vocally, they couldn't be touched. Instrumentally, they were just as good as just about any band out there instrumentally, especially when Joe Walsh came in, and yet Don Felder. Um, their individual vocals, their harmonies, the music, the lyrics, everything they did was top notch, and they were the number one selling band of the '70s. Not to mention they have the number one song uh, in the United States, which they keep going back and forth. It's the number one selling song and then or album and the number one selling album of the world, and it keeps going back and forth with Michael Jackson's Thriller. But it's definitely number one in the U.S., and that's the Eagles' greatest hits album. So why it's not Hotel California, I don't know, because that is my all-time favorite album of all time.
Can I ask you a question then, Kurt? Right? I mean, what genre of music would you put the Eagles in?
They were not Southern rock. They were called California rock. That's what it would have been considered because, well, there's elements of rock music to it. Obviously, it's not the hardcore stuff that you were going to get from Zeppelin, or Metallica or anything like that.
Oh, Metallica, see, I forgot about them. Shit, man. This is freaking hard. This is.
Well, believe it or not, Metallica didn't make my top 10, but they were an honorable mention. So, but yeah. So it's just I'm sorry, I forgot the question now.
Well, I asked you what genre of music you
Oh,
put
okay, yeah.
the Eagles in because over here in the UK, they were always considered as country. And I said to my friends in my accountability group, there's 3 of them that are from America, and I said that Eagles and a good country band, and they're like, no, that ain't country music. So it's interesting. We're talking about music from your side of the pond to our side of the pond. Over here, we categorize them as country music. Music.
Well, and I could see how that could happen because especially early in their career, much of it was semi-country sound to it. In fact, they had banjos in it, and often ukuleles and um, what's the other little guitar instrument that they had? I don't recall right now, but they had a lot of that kind of music that would have been played with in western country music or even in bluegrass music. A
Right.
mandolin, that was it, a mandolin.
Mandolin.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so they had a lot of that sound to them for early on, and it was Don Henley who wanted to. This is ultimately why the Eagles broke up in the '80s, because Don Henley wanted to take it more progressive, like Hotel California, in the long run, and Glenn Fry wanted to keep it more country. And as you see when they went off into their individual careers, where Glenn Fry stayed more into the the norm, being blues and stuff like that, and country. Don Henley took his music in a totally different direction, which would be more progressive, modern than anything Glenn Fry did. So
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. So what's your 10th band then? What did you put as number 10?
okay, this was a hard one, but I put the Beach Boys in because even though I like the Beach Boys, I really had to think hard about putting them in. But when you think about everything that they did and how, like, very much like the Beatles, their music evolved as time went on. And so it wasn't this just the simplistic songs that they started their career off with, it's how they ended up. And and when you figure that they sold over 100 million units worldwide, or 100 million albums, that says a lot, especially considering the time period that they started. And they've been what was the last hit they had? It was back in the 80s or 90s, but they started in the 50s. And so they've been making music all this time. And so longevity for them is a big plus.
I'll be honest with you, I was never a fan of the Beach Boys. I didn't like the style of it at all. I saw the lead singer, the bloke that plays the piano there or the
Right.
keyboard. I seen him live about 4 years ago. He was over in the UK at a festival called Kendall Calling, and he was there in the afternoon. So I think it was the Sunday afternoon, when a bit chilled out in the sun. Um, and it was all right. It was like an 18, nearly 90-year-old guy sat on the stage on a keyboard, and I appreciate that they're a big band. I understand, how big their music is worldwide. But it's the fact that down here in Cornwall, where I live, southwest UK, we got a beach called Newquay, which is a surf orientated beach, and surfing in Cornwall is quite big. So because for that reason, everywhere you go in the summer, there's a Beach Boys song being played, and it's just like
Right.
I won't call it cheesy, but it just they've never really done it for me.
I will tell you, back in the day, I was a big fan of theirs, but I became less and less of a fan as my taste evolved and was looking for something more than just, the basic, songs about driving fast cars and picking up women and all that good stuff. When my when my when my music taste evolved, it became lyrical, where lyrics meant something, or there was a hidden message, and you had or there was innuendo in the song that made it more attractive to me. That's why, to me, Don Henley is one of the best songwriters of all time, and because of the way he writes. So yeah, so it was the Beach Boys, not because I necessarily think they should be there as far as my personal taste, but I thought they belonged there. So
Right. That's
all right,
sweet. Sweet.
I probably would agree with your number 10, definitely, before my own.
Can
But
I just say I've got now 20 bands that I love here in front of me, and having to pick number 9 from this is freaking difficult, man. I would say my number 9 would be a band from the UK. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, right? And they're called the Manic Street Preachers.
no, I have not heard of them. The Manic
They're a
Street.
Manic Street Preachers. They are from Wales, and I started listening to them, I would say, in about 1992, 1993. And the first song that I listened to of them, you remember that song "Suicide Is Painless"
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the MASH theme song?
Yep.
They done a version of that, and it was really a hard version. It was it was awesome. And I went to a fest. I went to a concert at Milton Keynes Bowl in about 1993, 94, and it was Bon Jovi Keep the Faith tour. And the first band to come out on stage was the Manic Street Preachers. Then it was the Little Angels. Then Billy Idol. Then it was Bon Jovi. And that was when I really started appreciating their music, Manic Street Preachers. And like I said, they're a band from Wales. There's not much that I can really say about them, but I'm not really knowledgeable about them. But I've seen them 5 times, and every time I've seen them, that they really do impress me, and the style of music. It started off being very punky, stroke rock. I wouldn't know how to. It's like punk rock. I wouldn't really know how to describe it. I think they started off quite punky, but then it ended up going down the rock route sort of thing. But if you've not heard of them, and I might change my mind in a minute and say, no, actually number 9. But I'm going to say number 9 for Manic Street Preachers, because they're a band that I liked, a band that I've seen 5 times. Yeah, I'm going to say number 9, Manic Street Preachers. And, I recommend you go out there and check out some of the stuff, man.
And that's something I definitely plan on doing. So anything that I haven't heard of, I'm definitely going to go check out. And I encourage everybody watching or listening to do the same thing, because I've found by being around people that who listen to different music, and I because I'm open-minded and I listen to what they're listening to, I have found a lot of great music that way, to things I wouldn't normally be exposed to. So I love hearing new music that I haven't heard before. So I look forward to it.
I mean, the problem is with me, though, I don't know if you're the same. Music to me is very much like Chinese food. I love Chinese food, but whenever I go to a Chinese restaurant, I have the same meal every single time, because I'm frightened to try something new. So when I get in a car, right, I've got my CD in the car, because I've still got a car with a CD player. My CD's in there, and it'll be a 90s band playing, and I'll be like, should I try something new? Should I listen to something new? Nah, I'm listening to this. So I don't really listen to that much more newer music, because it's like having a Chinese meal. You want to try something new, but if you think that if you try it and you don't like it, you'll be disappointed that you haven't, stuck to your normal. If that makes any sense at all.
It makes perfect sense, because that's exactly who I am. I go to a restaurant, order the same meal every time, because I know I'm not going to be disappointed. However, when it comes to music, I'm the same way. I'll go and put the same music in that I normally like and listen to. But when you're around different, like for me, like I'm single, so I date, and I date much younger people usually. So I'm exposed to all this new music that if I turned the radio on, I would hear it, but I don't listen to the radio, because I listen to my music. And so when they're in the car or in the house or whatever, and we're listening to music, and they introduce me to all this new music, I'm really surprised at how much good music there really is out there, because the stuff it seems I do get to hear isn't really that good.
So what sort of music is the younger people listening to in America at the moment then?
Well, it's not even so much new music, it's just music I wouldn't have given a chance. Like, for instance, Taylor Swift. Never was a fan of Taylor Swift. Someone I know is a huge fan of Taylor Swift, like huge, like probably the biggest fan she has and doesn't even know it. I listened to Taylor Swift and started to appreciate her. I mean, not just her vocals, but her songwriting. Again, she's one of those people who've evolved over the past 10 years. Her music is much more adult-like than when she first started, because she's now an adult. And she's very extremely talented. I mean, extremely talented. And it's not somebody who I would have even listened to had it not been for this person. So Olivia Rodrigo is another one. She's like 17 years old, and she writes these lyrics where I go, how have you been able to write about these experiences? A 17-year-old shouldn't have experienced these things yet.
Yeah.
But here she is writing like she's much older. So it's quite interesting.
Cool. So what's your number 9 then?
Okay. My number 9 is Earth, Wind, and Fire. Now, because I said the top 10 bands of all time, not the top 10 rock bands, because I wouldn't consider Earth, Wind, and Fire a rock band. But I do consider them one of the top 10 bands of all time. Their vocals are unmatched. Philip Bailey's voice is unmatched, and their their music is unmatched. There's such complexity to their music, and yet it flows so beautifully. I mean, there's not a song that they play that you could be dead tired and sit in your butt in your chair, and if one of their song comes on, you're going to want to get up and dance. It just makes you want to do that.
I can't think of a song that they've done. I've heard the band name before, but I can't think off the top of my head of a song that they've done.
September. Do you remember?
Right, I'm with you. Yeah.
There you go.
I know they are
That's
now.
they
Yeah.
they have a ton of hits, and I guarantee you go, oh yep, I know that one. Oh yep, I know that one. Oh yep, I know that one. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's and again, their music is just amazing, and their vocals unbelievable. I mean, Philip Bailey, I actually saw, and and because of this, I love the horns. Earth, Wind, and Fire in Chicago, who also happens to be in my top 10 here. Two, I saw them both in concert at this together. Amazing, amazing concert. Philip Bailey
Mm.
hit a note in one of his songs that gave me goosebumps. Like, like it's like a heavenly experience where you go, if I didn't believe in God, I would believe in it because of this guy right here, because there's no way you can hit a note like that so beautifully without it being by design. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating a little, but it was, I mean, just a beautiful concert, both of them.
Yeah. No, there's not much that I can really say about that, to be honest with you, because, like I say, I don't really know much about. I mean, when were they out? Because I mean, that's a little bit before my time, and because it's a band that's over the other side of the water, I presume, I take it they're American, yeah.
Yeah, they are American, and they
So,
came out in the late '70s, early '80s. Um, Probably their heyday was the '70s through the '80s.
mm,
And it's funny because I over in England, it seems to me like you guys listen to more blues and listen to more soul than we do over here, at least white people. And that's my experience. I could be wrong, but it's been my experience that whites over in England listen to soul and blues and things like that much more than whites over here. I happen to be one of those whites who listens to soul and blues because I love both of them and funk, all of that. And it
mm.
seems like you guys would be more, I guess, as the kids used to say, hip to that.
I find it difficult because it's like years and years ago when I used to go into, we had a record store over here called Our Price and Virgin and that, and I used to go in there, and all the music would be you'd be categorized like rock and hip hop, and I never used to know where to go looking for bands, to be honest with you, because I find it really, really hard to put bands into categories
you know, you know,
because because it's, the way I look at it is there's lots of different types of, how can I put it? There's different parts of. I mean, how often do bands bring a song out and it's the same sort of genre all the way through? I mean, I find that as a band progresses, they change, they dip into different genres. So how can you say that the Beatles was solely a rock and roll band when they've done a lot of more of psychedelic stuff? So
right,
how do
right.
you categorize bands a lot of the time? I struggle with it.
Well, I think here's the problem with today is that they do try to categorize things. Back in the '70s, it was like you would hear Earth, Wind, and Fire, you would hear Chicago, you would hear Elton John, you'd hear Queen, you'd hear Led Zeppelin, Metallica, ACDC, you would hear the Commodores, you would hear all of these great, amazing groups on one radio station. Like it wasn't all rock. It was just that there's a blending of music. You would hear Parliament, on it, which is funk, on the same station that you would hear Highway to Hell, and
Mm.
so you heard Rod Stewart, like compared to I don't know. I mean, just anybody. It's just all over the place. David Bowie, everybody was on one channel. So you had this ability to be exposed to all different types of music that I don't think they have today.
No. Yeah, I see where you come. I mean, the thing, how I categorize music is good, bad, shit.
Right.
That's how I categorize it. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
I do struggle when somebody says, "Oh, what's your favorite funk band or what's your favorite hip hop band?" And I'm like, prime example. I mean, I like hip hop music. So when you talk about Cypress Hill, they were a hip hop band that went they went into a very heavy metal stage, a rock stage. They went down into, it went all over the shop at times, and it's like, I just find it hard to categorize music. I really, really do.
Well, I think they should probably do less categorizing and playing more,
Yeah.
you know, eclectic, just different styles, and let people
Yeah.
hear everything that's out there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with you. All right,
My number 8. Now this is
number
the
8.
difficult. No, this is a difficult one for me. This really, really is. I am going to say that my number 8 has to be an American band. The lead singer is John Bon Jovi. I don't think I need to say anything more than that, really. Bon Jovi, I mean, my first kiss was at a fairground on the waltzer, and you'd go around the back of the waltzer, and there would be Bon Jovi blaring out, Living on a Prayer and all that sort of stuff. And I think that it's a band that I grew up with,
Yeah.
in the early 80s, that they were massive. Everybody was wearing the stonewashed jeans, and everybody had a bit of a mullet going on. And John Bon Jovi he still is a good looking guy. Do you know what I mean? And there was just something about them, I mean, even his tattoo, even that stupid little Superman tattoo that he had on his arm, it suited him. And I just think that there was something about Bon Jovi that they changed with the times. And I've seen them live. I've seen them twice. I've seen them, and they were just a really, really good band. And the last time I saw them back in '92, and I seen them about 4 years ago. And they hadn't changed. They were still entertaining. They were still really, really good. Sadly, the guitarist has left the band now. Is it Sampdoria? I can never remember his name. Richie Sampdoria. Yeah,
Sambor, I think it is something like
yeah.
that.
He's left the band, and I don't think they're doing as much now. But just generally, I just don't think there's anybody on the planet that doesn't like Living on a Prayer. When that kicks in, it's just like everybody just knocking the head back, and it's just an awesome track, an awesome band as well.
I know a lot of people who feel the same way as you. And there's a lot to be said about Bon Jovi. I was never a fan, and I mean, I like Bon Jovi. I liked them okay, but it's not like where I'd go buy one of their albums, even though you heard "Living on a Prayer," you know, like you can't help but sing with it when you hear it. So because if you don't know anything else, "Living on a Prayer," that part. So
I mean, even today, when you go to a wedding reception or a karaoke evening, I guarantee you,
right,
here in the UK, "Living on a Prayer" will be there.
yep. Which showed how John Bon Jovi was really talented, because when you hear other people trying to hit that note, not very good.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it was his hair as well. When he was a good looking guy, and he had amazing hair, and he was one of those people that if you put him in a dress, like Roger Taylor from Queen when he done I Want to Break Free, he was a good looking. He was a bit confusing it growing up. I was like, well, that's a good looking bird. Then realised it was a bloke. And I think it's the same with John Bon Jovi. If you used to put him in a skirt, I think he'd look damn hot in a skirt. Do you know what I mean? Everybody fancied John Bon Jovi, whether he was male or female. That's my guilty pleasure, guys. That's what I'm saying.
I agree with you. Even if you like, I didn't like his style because his hair was long, and he always wore the '80s stuff. But it's like you can't deny the fact that he's a good looking man. He's a man's man, and women love him, and so he's one of those guys. So you're right. I think either way he'd be good looking. So.
What's your number 8 then, Kurt? What's your
My
number 8?
my number 8 is Chicago. And again, back in, you got to realize these guys started back in the 60s, and they were ahead of their time, I believe, in the music that they produced. The one reason why Chicago doesn't make it higher on my list is because, unlike other bands, their sound was so unique and so amazing and so different when they first started. And by the time the 80s rolled around, some producer got their hands on them and made Peter Cetera the lead singer. And then it was this cookie cutter stuff, which again wasn't bad. I mean, there were huge hits for them, I mean, huge hits. But they were a different group now. They were catering to the little pop kids. I seriously remember, this girl saying, "Oh, this is a great band. I've never heard of them before," and I was like, and this girl's 18 years old, and this is the first time when Hard to Say I'm Sorry came out. I think that's what it was called, and this is like in the early 80s, and they actually thought this was Chicago's first song, first hit, and that they were an amazing new group. I go, I hate to break to you, but they've been around for at least 15 years, if not more
Yeah.
already. So and so, but again, because the heads of the music industry got a hold of them, separated the band members, and basically said, "This is the direction we're going in. If you want to be part of it, then you're going to go our way, or you're going to leave the band." And so, while the music was, good for pop music, it wasn't what they were used to putting out.
Again, whether it's, and it was a bit before my time. I can't recall anything by them. They sound to me like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, because Red Hot Chili Peppers, they were big in the 90s, but they were out for years before that, and people didn't realize that they were out before that. I mean, listen to it, and I think they started up in like the late 70s, early 80s, or something stupid like that, and everybody thinks that they were big in the 90s, but they were out for years and years. So it sounds to me like they were a band a bit like them, really.
Well, actually, Chicago was very famous in the 60s and 70s. It was just that as the parents grew up with this music, these kids were there. I mean, Chicago's still putting out hits all these years later. So now you have this new generation who's not aware of all the hits they had beforehand, like 25, 6 to 4, um, Color My World. Color My World's probably at least back in the 70s, was the most overplayed slow dance song that you could ever have. Like, that's the song at the end of every dance, at the end of the evening, that's the song that everyone danced to, Color My World. So
one of those bands I expect that if a track come on, I would know who they are.
But yeah, again, a ton of hits, and if you heard them, you go, "Oh yeah, I heard that one, I know that one, I know that one." So 25, 6 to 4 is probably one I would tell you to listen to first, and I'm sure you will know that song.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Well, I'll check them out.
Your number 7 is?
I don't know. I would say it has got to be Public Enemy. I am, like I say, a 90s lad. I grew up in the 90s, and I went to Glastonbury Music Festival in 2013, and the headline act was the Rolling Stones. And I was about the only person out of the 220,000 people that didn't go and watch the Rolling Stones, because I went across and watched Public Enemy. I saw the first 2 tracks of the Rolling Stones, and then I went across and watched Public Enemy, and all of my mates were calling me crazy. And I appreciate the Rolling Stones, but for me, there was a band in the 90s called Public Enemy that was massive. They were kicking off a very political band. I know it's hip hop music, but they were very, very political, and they had, they got such a big story to tell. Do you know what I mean? And you being American, you and growing up through the 90s, you will have seen how big the message was that they were getting through to the black community. They were expressing themselves to the white community, and the white community was stopping and looking and saying shit, and I think that they were a massive part in the 90s. For me, they really were. I mean, the black culture, I never really knew much about the black culture, because where I lived down here in the UK, that you didn't see a black man, you didn't see a black woman, you didn't see them. But with hip hop music, I loved the beat. I just loved the beat behind it. And then for a band like Public Enemy to come on the scene to me and to hear that story of what black people have to go through, and the story that they're telling us white people, that, why are we always getting stopped because of for the color of our skin, why are we always getting picked on for the color of our skin, all that sort of stuff. It made me stop and think and look at the whole racism thing, and I just think they're an amazing band. So, I have to choose them for number 7, because again, they're another band that changed me and made me look at that. They're a band that, when they were singing, when they were rapping, they were telling that story. Everything was telling that story. It was it was a very political music. So for me, it has to be Public Enemy at number 7.
Good choice. I have Public Enemy on my honorable mention, simply because I know what power they invoked and in people, and what they stood for, what their music was about. It was probably about 10 years too late for me, because I don't, I'm older than you. So it didn't resonate with me the way it would a younger generation. I was already in my 30s. And so while I understood the music and understood the power of it and understood why people liked it, it was a bit behind me. So I didn't, I was beyond that. I was already, that guy who was going, no, music's better than what I grew up with. So I wasn't listening to a whole lot other than what I grew up with. When you get in that phase, which most people do at one point, and then you can break out of it. But so so I agree with you. I had them on my honorable mention just simply because the impact that they had, and I couldn't fault you for that. So.
Well, I mean, I had, like I said, I love my hip hop music, and I had 2 hip hop bands there, and I had to choose one.
Right.
And both of them had the same message and the same story, and the other one was NWA.
Yeah,
and to me, it was choosing between NWA and Public Enemy, and that's a freaking hard thing to do. Now, if you ask me tomorrow, I might choose NWA, but today it was Public Enemy, and I just think because they're around the same sort of time, but I think Public Enemy were a little bit earlier, and they were the ones that got the whole ball rolling. They started getting people thinking.
Right. And I believe you're right. I believe that the Public Enemy was the start of that.
Yeah. So as much as I would love to put NWA in, I mean, I've got loads of bands in here, but they're not going to make my top 10 because I've chosen Public Enemy. And I don't know if I've done the right thing there, but that's the way shit's going down.
I don't think anyone could fault you for it. They might not agree with you, but I don't know how they could fault you, honestly. Either one would have been a good choice. So
I mean, the thing is, listening to the music, I would say that today, 2022, I probably listen to more NWA than what I do Public Enemy. And I probably did 10, 15, 20 years ago, but I just think it's the fact that I respect them both, and I just think that Public Enemy are getting it from me today, just for the simple fact that they started the movement, and they were the band that really attracted me to hip hop. So I've got to choose it. Public Enemy.
Good choice. All right. So that was number 7. My number 7. You're gonna hate me for this. A lot of people are gonna hate me for this. The Beatles. Now, everyone's going to go, are you crazy? How could you put them so low on that list? And here's the thing. I only have them on my list because of 2 reasons. One, I know the impact. Again, there's no band in in modern music that had the impact on music that the Beatles had. While that being said, back in my day, you were either Elvis fan or you were a Beatles fan. You didn't find many who were both. So
Right.
I was an Elvis fan and I grew to like the Beatles. But what I found was, is I preferred the Beatles older, like the newer stuff, the more evolved stuff. I really enjoyed that. As you would say, the psychedelic stuff. I enjoyed where they were going with their music and where they went with it when they broke up and had uh, their individual bands. And so, um, again, for me not to put them in there, even though they're not one of my absolute favorite, and I wouldn't put them as my favorite in top 10. I'm saying these are the top 10 bands, not necessarily my favorite top 10
Mhm.
bands, but I would be remiss in not putting them in here. So I don't know. I'm sure people will be upset about that, but I'm sorry. So,
Well, I'm not. I'm not really upset about that, to be honest with you at all, because I was going to put them down as my number 6 band.
oh really?
So you've kind of like we can kill two birds with one stone here if you want,
Yeah, let's do
because
that.
I mean I'm a huge Beatles fan. Um, just because they have formed. I love indie music, right? Here in the UK, and the thing is they have formed a lot of the bands that I listen to today. So if it wasn't from the beat for the Beatles, you wouldn't have had I don't think the Smiths.
Right.
You wouldn't have had Oasis. So they're big bands to me, and I love the music. When the music comes on, I listen to it. But again, I don't recall that I've ever been out and bought an album of theirs. You know, I appreciate the music. I love the music. I sing the music when it comes on the radio, but it was a little bit before my time. I'm not going to be controversial now and say that I feel that they're a little bit overrated, because I nearly did say that. Um, I don't really know. I don't really know what to say about the Beatles. I really do appreciate them because they've given me what I listen to today, but they were, to me, a little bit before my time. I listen to it today, but for me,
Right.
there's bands that's higher up that list than the Beatles.
I agree with you. Everything you said, I agree with. Even that part that you didn't really want to say, I I agree with you. So, um, I will say this: Paul McCartney, when he had his band Wings, they had an album called Ram, and they had a song on there called Uncle Albert, and I love that. I love that album. I love that song. So I liked his individual stuff more than I did the Beatles stuff. If I'm being honest. Excuse me one second.
Well, because we're doing a 7 and a 6 here, you know, your number 7 and my number 6, to drag out a little bit longer, then what would be your favorite Beatles song of all time?
If you asked me back decades ago, I would have said "Let It Be," because I loved slow songs back then, like a lot, like most 70s
Mm,
people did. Um, I don't know. I really do enjoy a lot of songs, but maybe Help.
mm.
Um,
I I I was a Sergeant Pepper's guy.
Art Close Band.
Yeah, and Lucy in the Sky with
Yeah.
Diamonds. But I would say for me, the one that tops it off would have to be the Walrus. That is because I put it on the other day and showed my boy the video, and it was like you can tell what they were about at the time. You can tell that they're all off their tits. You know, it's just like, I mean, I wasn't around then, and there's a part of me that would have loved to have been around then. Um, but the whole video was just done so, it looked like such a budget video, but it was clearly what they were about at the time, like, you know, with the flary trousers and the psychedelic shirts and all
Right.
that lot, and a walrus going across the screen like this, and policemen in the back. It was just weird and bizarre. And when I showed my brother, my boy, the other day, he was 11, he was just like, "What is this? What the hell is this?" You know. and it was just crazy. But I would say that that would have to be my favorite song that they've done is The Walrus or Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. They've done some great. It's hard to pick, isn't it?
Yeah, here's the thing. I'm sorry, just noticing. Uh, I need some sinus medicine.
Fight the power, my friend. Fight it.
Exactly. All right. So when you say Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds or Sergeant Pepper's Heart Club Band, even though I know that's their music, I always think of Elton John and the Bee Gees before I think of them. Even though I know it's they're the original, with the music, I always loved Elton John's Lucy in the Sky and Bee Gees Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band. So even though I probably should be thinking of the Beatles, I think of them instead.
Right. Okay. Cool. So what about your number 6 then? What are you going for number 6?
Okay, my number 6 is going to be Aerosmith.
Right.
Now, I love Aerosmith. I saw them in concert a couple of years ago and rocking like they did 40 years ago. Seriously. Steven Tyler, I don't know how he's able to still hit those notes like it's nothing, but they put on such an amazing show, and the loudest concert I've been to, and I've been to a lot of concerts, and I'm talking about, even the newer stuff like Breaking Benjamins and groups like that you would think would be really loud, and Aerosmith just blew everybody's doors off, and just amazing. And here's the thing with them though. Again, the reason why they're not higher up on my list is because they kind of devolved again when they started out.
Yeah.
And again, I know they had their crazy and funny songs too, but they had a lot of songs that were beyond their age, like and they were writing about things that mattered. And then as they got, as the music went on throughout the decades, it became more pop stuff. And so that's why uh, that's why they're not as higher on the list of what they are. They're a great band, great vocals, great instrumentals, great songs, especially in the beginning of their career. And that's what
when I was in school in the early 90s, I had a mate of mine called Ivan, and he used to love Aerosmith. And it was kind of funny because the bands that I was listening to in the early 90s, like Nirvana, bit of grunge music was in. You had hip hop in. Where I lived down in the UK, it was a very dance orientated. So you had hard house and all that sort of stuff, the rave scene kicking off. So that was the style of music that everybody was listening to. And Aerosmith were a band that were like 10 years prior that. And my mate Ivan was listening to a lot of their stuff, like Walk This Way and all that.
Right.
And he was listening to that, and I was just like, what is this shit? It didn't do it for me at all. But then when I was about 16, so mid 90s, I went up to my auntie's house, and when we came back, my mum had arranged to get Sky TV installed into the house. Mum and dad didn't, we went away up to Yorkshire. Mum and dad had arranged to get Sky TV for when we came back. And that was when I came back and started started watching MTV, like Beavis and Butthead and all that sort of stuff. And I fell in love with MTV. When MTV was freaking amazing, everybody was watching MTV. And there was a song on there that I fell in love with, and it was Aerosmith, Living on the Edge. And I think that the lead singer, Steven Tyler, I think his daughter was perhaps in the video for that. I'm not quite sure. And I was just like really attracted to this bird that was on that. And that was what initially attracted me to the song and the whole beat of the song. And that was when I started to respect Aerosmith. So Aerosmith don't make my top 10, but I've got some fond memories of the song. What album was it that they done with the cow's udder on the front? It's got the cow's udder, and it's got the udder's pierced. One of the teats is pierced. I can't remember what album it is. But that was a song, that was an album that they brought out in the 90s, and it almost like revamped Aerosmith and brought them back from like, because they're an old band, aren't they?
Right. Yeah.
And it brought them back around again. So I know what I can see where you're coming from, and I do like them. For me, they don't make a top 10, but a good band.
Okay. So where are we when it comes to number 5?
Number 5. So you want my number
Oh wait,
5? Do you?
did we get your 6?
I
Yeah,
said the
Okay,
Beatles.
yeah,
I
okay.
said the
So that's
Beatles, and then your number 6 was Aerosmith.
right. And your number
Um,
5.
Number 5 has got to. Oh, this is so difficult. I'm gonna have to lose somebody here now. My band, and it's a choice between. It's going to be Radiohead.
Good choice. I had a hard time. I did. They didn't make my top 10, but I had a hard time.
I mean, they to me. I mean, I I used to sit in. I used to do art in when I left school. I was doing A-level art, and we'd sit in the common room, and I think "Creep" was the first song that attracted them to me when that ding ding with the guitar, when that bit kicks in, and I was just like, what are these? These are really good. It's really, really good. And then after that, fake plastic plants. Is it fake plastic plants or plastic trees? I think it's fake plastic plants. That was another song that they'd done. And Iron Lung, some class tracks. And then they're the new album that came out, OK Computer. And I mean, I still listen to it today. 10, 15 years down, well, not 10 years, 15, 20 years down the track, I'm still listening to it. And I've seen them at Glastonbury again, and they're amazing. And the amount of times I've been totally stoned out of my head on my mate's car, listening to Paranoid, OK Computer and Paranoid Android, and just I can't say anything more about them. I would love to put them higher up the rankings in number 5, but there's better bands there for me than them. But
Right.
an awesome band. I mean, I don't. Were they as big in America, or if not, were they bigger in America than what they are in the UK?
I don't know that they were bigger, but they were certainly big here. There's a lot of people who loved Radiohead, and I loved a lot of their music too. So, and again, they had a big impact on music here. Um, so it's hard not to put them in there.
Mm. I don't. I mean, I don't really know what more to say about them, to be honest with you. Because I mean, the lead singer, he's a bit of a. Is it Tom York? I think that's his name. He's a bit of a weird character, but again, he's one of those guys that is on stage trying to tell a story.
Right.
He's on stage making an impact, and you can see how much he loves his music by the expressions that he pulls on his face. And also, they were one of the first bands. They brought an album out. I can't remember what the album was called, but it was the first album that ever came out where you paid what you wanted to pay
Oh,
to buy
really?
it. Yeah, it was the first one of the first ever digital albums that came out, and I think I bought it for about £4, but a friend of mine got it for 2p. And it's just like you basically because they were losing so much money from people that downloading albums illegally. Right. They were saying, right, well, here's our album. You can have it for free if you want, but if you feel like giving us some money for it, there it is. And they were one of the first bands to go down that route. And much respect for. I've had some cracking times listening to their music. OK Computer has to be one of my most listened to albums of all time.
Very good. Well, again, I can't fault you for that. I would definitely see how they would make your top 10, and I almost figured it would, to be honest with you, because of.
Did you? You thought that Radiohead was going to be in my top 10?
Yeah, because of the kind of music you like. From what and again, I don't suppose to know you that well, but from what you've been telling me of other things that you like I would think you like. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but you would probably like the Clash, for instance. You would probably like the Knack.
Never even heard of them.
You never heard of the Knack?
Nope. I like
Really?
what I like, motherfucker. If I don't like it, I haven't heard it.
I think if you heard them, you might be shocked. That's so hard to believe that you don't.
Right,
You've never heard
I'm
of
going
the
to write that down. The Neck. Is that an American band?
No, it's a British band.
Is it? Right. Right. I feel ashamed with myself now. Go on, man. What's your number 5 then?
My number 5 is my all-time favorite band, the Eagles. And it pained me to put them at 5, but I'm trying to be honest about this. I Hotel California, that song itself, I've listened to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And if I were to be stuck on an island with one album that I could have and be able to play it, it would be Hotel California. And the reason is there's so many different styles of music on that one album. It's just it's a piece of genius as far as I'm concerned. The harmonies, the instrumentals. They had an orchestra in that on that album, and the lyrics. Because the Eagles were always this, especially as they were moving on past the mid '70s, they became a very political and activist type band where they would talk about like overcrowding, um, or the destruction of our political system. They talked about Tricky Dick and Richard Nixon and it just they were more uh, an activist type band that could make great music and yet put these lyrics in a song that you would sing, and most people didn't even know what the hell they were singing. I can tell you right now that one of the concerts I went to was after their one of their last albums that they put out, the not the long run, the other one. I don't know why it's skipping my mind, but it was all
Right.
about the war in Iraq. It was about oil. It was about people driving around their big SUVs, and everybody who pulled up to that concert was driving a big old SUV. I go, they're singing about you. Of course,
Yeah.
for all I know, Don Henley drives a big old SUV too, so I don't know. But there's music means something, but I don't know that the listeners really hear the message behind it.
I got to ask you a question then. What if you could only listen to one Eagles track for the rest of your life? Which one would it be?
I mean, what's one song?
Yeah, if you could only listen to one song of theirs.
It really comes down to one of two songs. It comes down to Hotel California, which is what I would probably pick, or Take It to the Limit. Take It to
Right,
the
two
Limit.
good, two good tracks.
I will tell you this: Take It to the Limit has the best advice for a relationship that you could ever find in a song anywhere. And it goes, if it all fell to pieces tomorrow, would you still be mine? And I tell people, if you ask a person that question and they can't answer yes with all their heart, they're the wrong person.
Mm, mm,
If they can't be there tomorrow, if it all fell to pieces, that's not the person you belong with.
mm. I mean, there's loads of tracks. I mean, Take It Easy, Tequila Sunrise.
Great song.
But for me, I would have to say that it would have to be Lion Eyes because
Good.
again, that's I think that's about 8 minutes long, that track, isn't it? And I
Yes.
think we've all been cheated on in our life, haven't we? In our life at some stage, and you know, it's got such meaning that track, and such great lyrics. That's what I would pick. I think is Lion Eyes.
It's a great song. I've sang that song so many times when I'm not blocked up my nose. I always like to sing the harmonies to it because I've sang
Yeah,
it that much. I like to sing the backup to it because I know all the parts. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's a great song, and you never get tired of singing these songs. That's the thing. I never
no.
have. I could sing, again, Hotel California. It doesn't see. Here's the thing, Mark, is that for me, I don't know about you. there's no music out there that talks to me. Now that's because one of the things I hear people say, for instance, uh, the person who loves Taylor Swift said that Taylor Swift speaks to me. Her music speaks to me. It means something to me. I don't really have that music. I don't have music that made me want to rally or made me want to fight or made me want to do any of those things. Even though there were a lot of songs out there that, I don't know, maybe it's because when I was younger, I didn't really pay attention to the lyrics and what they meant back then. But I was never in a place where I felt like I needed music to lift me up or out of a situation. And so maybe that's what it is too. I mean, what about you? Was there a, a singer, a band, music that spoke to you that made you who you are today?
Oh, I wouldn't say there was a specific band, just a specific style, right? I mean, Morrissey from the Smiths. I mean, that bloke is a freaking genius. And it's funny because when my mom, Mrs., she's got a totally different taste of music to what I have. And she calls my music depressing, the Smiths, Radiohead. And I mean, not being funny, for somebody
Right.
that doesn't, people could listen to that and they were like, oh my God, this is depressing. But I've never, ever found it depressing at all. If ever I'm feeling depressed, I can lay down on my sofa or on the couch, put it on, crank it right up, put it on my headphones, and I will be absolutely, I can feel goosebumps, I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck rising, and I'll come away and I will feel a million times better. But at the same time, I've been in a real depressed state, and it's kept me sane listening to it. And I've got loads of different emotions from loads of different songs from loads of different bands. But I would say it's that kind of, for me, it's the indie sort of music, the very dark and depressive stories. The whole Manchester scene in the 90s, the Manchester and Liverpool scene, the music that was kicking out then, you got to remember that it was very, very dark times. There was lots of poverty. It was the Thatcher years in the UK. People didn't have money. There was lots of racism and rioting going on, and there was the mines closing down and the unions kicking off, and loads of strikes. Very, very poor times. And these bands that was around in those times, they were telling a story, and it was depressing times, but I just didn't find it depressing music. And I
Right.
don't know if that answers your question at all there, but for me, I can't even remember what your question was. I
So
just had to, I had to spout that out.
did any of that music, did it inspire you? Like, did it have any effect on who you are today?
um,
Maybe
that's
the
it.
way you think, your beliefs, any of that, or were those beliefs and what you thought, were those formed before the music, or did they help shape your thoughts in the world?
I I think that I think that the stories and the politics that it told made me a very political person. I don't think that if I didn't grow up listening to the Smiths, and if I didn't grow up listening to that style of music, I don't think that it would have clicked me onto politics as much. And I think that it made me appreciate music because it's not just all about sitting down listening to the beat. It's a huge, huge part of. I mean, you listen to some songs, you listen to a song, and you sit down and you listen to the beat, and then you sit down and you listen to another song on a different day, and you want to listen to the lyrics, the deep, dark, meaningful lyrics that some people will find really, really sad and upsetting, like the Smiths. When if a double decker bus killed the both of us. Now, a lot of people would think that's really, really depressing, but for me, it doesn't. It's not. It's
Right.
the fact. Right. It's a love story. It's what I love about music is different people take different meanings from it. So I think that the music that I listened to back in the early 80s, 90s, I think it did change my life because it made me listen to the lyrics rather than just listening to the beats and the tempos. It made me the bands that I was listening to back in those days, like the Smiths and all that lot. They changed me because I started listening to lyrics.
Very cool. Well, I know that again. I know for some people, the lyrics get them through their hard times, their difficult times. There's something that artists will sing or a band will play, and it just resonates with them. It like especially nowadays. Like I don't know why would like Linkin Park, for instance, speaks to me when it talks about breakups and stuff and how people feel and how that person's feeling, and how you want to break away from a relationship and things of that nature. Those are things that I think everybody could feel. Now, I wouldn't say it shaped me because Linkin Park didn't come along till much later in my life, but I enjoyed their music and their lyrics in particular, and a lot of other bands like that. That came along, but I wouldn't say that they necessarily shaped me. So
Mm. I'm just looking down at the listing now because whose pick is it next?
it's yours for number 4.
Number 4. I would say that for my number 4, it's got to be Guns N' Roses.
Really?
Um, yeah, and yeah, I'm going to go with Guns N' Roses because in the 90s they were freaking massive.
They were.
And they were like Marmite, I think, in the sense that you either liked them or you hated them. And everybody that I know liked them. I mean, Axl Rose's voice was just totally different. I don't think there was somebody that would scream down the microphone that sounded like a cat dying, but everybody liked his voice, and it was just poetic. I mean, I just find that they were just amazing. Slash, that again, good looking bloke with long hair that would slip into leather trousers and look amazing with his hair down with cigarettes poking out. The whole image about the band, Axl Rose running around the stage, and one day he'd be wearing a long checkered shirt and a pair of tight lycra shorts, and the other day he'd be running around with his shirt off and jeans. I just think for me, they were my first heavy metal band that I listened to. If that's the genre that I think it is, and it is heavy metal. That to me, you had Metallica on the scene. You had Ugly Kid Joe, AC/DC, but for me, they were the band that opened my eyes to heavy metal. It would be Guns N' Roses, and November Rain, what a classic tune. Use Your Illusion 2 was the first album of theirs that I listened to. Get in the ring, motherfucker. I'll kick your bitchy little ass. It was an album that I used to listen to very quietly in my house because my mum and dad, I never swore in front of my mum and dad. I respected my mum and dad's the way I was brought up, and that I didn't swear. And whenever they was out, I'd crank it right up, get in the ring, motherfucker, and just rebel. But just an awesome band. And I mean, I haven't seen Guns N' Roses live, but I have seen Slash live. And I'm just trying to think who it was that he had sing. Slash was playing the guitar. It was at Glastonbury 2010. Slash was playing, and he had somebody that the lead singer of another band. I can't remember what his name was, but he took Axl Rose's place, and it was freaking amazing, absolutely amazing. So it was, for me, it was like listening to Guns N' Roses, and all my mates again went to watch. It was when the World Cup was on, the football World Cup, and they all went to watch England versus Germany, which is a massive, massive game. It always goes to penalties, and England always lose to penalties against Germany. And they all went off to the big screen and watched this. And I'm like, guys, we're at a music festival. I ain't watching football as much as I love it. I'm going to go and watch Slash. He's a legend, he's an absolute legend. And I went and watched that, and I remember it was the hottest day ever. It was here in the UK, it was about 34 degrees, which for you guys over there was just like a cold day for you. But I was totally stoned out of my head. I was laid on the floor. I was just totally laid out on the floor, the sun beaming down on me. And it's just, again, a day that I'll never forget. Just moshing out to Slash, totally amazing. Guns N' Roses for me, number 4, has to be.
Okay. Well, I could see why you'd pick them. I'm a big fan of Guns N' Roses. I love their music. I I did put him in my top 10 because I did think they had the impact of the bands that I did put in here. I just thought they were a really good band, and I think Axl Rose. Here's the thing: Don Henley to me has one of, if not the greatest rock voice as far as I'm concerned. I think his range and his voice is unique in a way that no one else's is. And I've heard him sing other people's songs like Tears for Fears and do it better than Tears for Fears did it. I admire the man. His voice is incredible. He did backup for Axl Rose, and he said this man's voice was so powerful because it almost blew me out. He goes, it was incredible what a powerful voice he had. And so I was like, well, I got to respect that. If Don Henley says
Yeah.
it, I believe it.
Yeah. I mean, didn't he have like throat cancer or something
Yeah.
at an early age, didn't he? And that was the reason why he's got that really, that really husky sort of voice. But I mean, have you seen him recently?
The last time I saw him, he wasn't looking good. He was overweight and he looked sort of like a drag queen. But it's like the way he was dressed and everything. Um, so he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't fared too well. But I haven't seen pictures of him probably in the past couple of years at least.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that, well, two questions here now, right? Do you think that Guns N' Roses will ever get together at all? Do you think Slash and Axl? And do you think they should?
I don't think they should because one of the things that would hurt them is that Axl Rose doesn't have the same voice he had back then. He can't sing the way he used to sing. He's not Steven Tyler. Like I would never think Aerosmith should get back together if Steven Tyler lost his voice. If Axl Rose could get his voice back, then oh yeah, I'd say get back in a heartbeat. But I just don't see that happening.
Mm.
It's sort of like he's because of the throat cancer or whatever, he lost his range, and it's hard. I know singers like Don Henley talks about this. He goes, he said, I don't even like going falsetto. He goes, but as he's older now, he's in his 70s, it's getting a little harder to hit those notes he hit when he was in his 20s, he would no problem. And so he goes, but he does his best not even to go falsetto because he feels like that's cheating. I can only imagine what that would feel like for Axl Rose if he had to do something like that.
All right. So another question for you then. What band that have split up would you like to see get back together?
And well, for me, it happened when the Eagles split up because I swore back in because I didn't get to see the Eagles before they split up, and I said I don't care whether if they ever get back together because they were talking about hell would freeze over before they ever got back together. I said if they ever get back together, I don't care what it costs and I don't care where it's at. I will be there. Fortunately, they came to Orlando, so I didn't have to go far. But nowadays, who would I want to see get back together? I don't know. That's a good question. What about you?
Well, it's difficult here in the UK because if you ask this question to, I would say 80% of the people here in the UK would say one of two bands. Well, actually, it could be one of three bands. The Jam,
Okay. Okay.
I would say the Smiths or Oasis.
Are you talking about Oasis from the 70s Oasis?
No, Oasis with Liam and Noel Gallagher.
Okay. I'm pretty sure there was a band called Oasis back in the 70s.
I wouldn't have thought so, mate. Well, I might be wrong, but no, I mean, here in the UK, you've got Liam and Noel Gallagher. You must have heard of Liam and Noel Gallagher.
No.
Honestly, man, you've never heard of Oasis?
No, I'm sure I've heard of Oasis music because I mean I know that I've heard Oasis like recently in the past couple of years, but I remember thinking the same thing. Is that the band from the 70s? Because I'm pretty sure there was a band called the Oasis back in the 70s.
Right. Have you got your phone handy?
Yeah, let me grab
Right.
it.
You've got to type in Oasis, right? And two guys will pop up, and you tell me that must be the band that you're thinking of from the 70s because There is only one, and there will only be one Oasis, and that must be who you're thinking of: Liam Gallagher and Noel Gallagher. I mean, they were freaking huge. They came over to America. They tried to, smash America, and I think it never really happened for them. But over in the UK, they've got to be the biggest band since the Eagles, since the Beatles.
Really?
Are you seeing them now? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, my phone's taking forever for some reason here. Let me see what.
Right. Okay. Yeah, they done. I mean, I'm just trying to think what the big. They done a song Wonderwall.
Oh, I know that song. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
know that song. Oh, now I know who you're talking about. Wasn't there some sort of riff between them and another band over in England, and like everybody was
Yes.
either
Um.
the fan of one or the other?
Yeah. Blur. There's you had Blur that was a Brit pop band, and Oasis were rock and rock kind of thing, and yeah, they fell out. Whether it was for publicity, I don't know. But you've got Damon Albarn from the from Blur. Have you heard of Blur? Do you know who Blur are? They've
Yeah,
done
I
songs
know.
like
Yeah,
Park Life and that. But no, see, you're on the same song sheet as me now. You know Oasis are, yeah.
yes.
Cool. So
My phone's not pulling up what I want. It's acting up. I think it's.
no worries, no worries. Well, there you are. Well, what number are we at now? Are we
Uh,
at number? Your number 4, is it?
my number 4. All right, hold on one second. All right, here we go. My number 4 is this was painful too. Is going to be Queen. What do you say about Queen? They were, I mean, one, if not the most, one of the most iconic bands of all time. They have the most iconic song of all time. I don't think anybody could say there's a song that's more iconic than Bohemian Rhapsody that everybody knows the chorus to, if not the whole song.
Do you know what? You go on YouTube, and there's people on YouTube these days that will listen to a song for the first time and they'll give their opinion. Have you ever seen these people
Yeah,
that do
I
it on
have.
YouTube?
Uh-huh.
And there's 2 black guys on there. I saw them the other day, and they listened to Bohemian Rhapsody for the first time. And I'm like, right, it's 2022. You guys must be in your early 20s. How have you never ever
Right.
heard Bohemian Rhapsody? Because everybody, I mean, if you're in Ethiopia, do you know what I mean? If you're in outer Mongolia, if you're on the moon, if you're on Mars, everybody has heard Bohemian Rhapsody. And it is an amazing song. They're an amazing band. It was the first band that I ever really probably listened to. And again, they were a band that changed with the times. And they were really, they were a band that played hardly. They played soft music. Freddie Mercury done A Night at the Opera. They could just do everything. And I mean, his voice, I mean, he was an opera singer, really, wasn't he? They were amazing, amazing. And I can't say, yeah, I could put them down as 3, 2, or 1. I really,
Right.
yeah, they're amazing, amazing band.
Yeah, and you said, I mean, you said it all. They could do everything, and this is what kills me about music back then. Bohemian Rhapsody had one producer. One producer. Guess who it was?
I don't know.
Freddie Mercury. That's who produced it. He produced that song. Beyonce's last album or two had like 17 or 19 producers.
Right.
It's like, for what? Your music didn't come even close to this. And not to say anything bad about Beyonce. It's just not in the same ballpark, not even close. And you had this one genius who could do all of this and make the most iconic song of all time, as far as my opinion goes. So yeah, Freddie Mercury's voice was unbelievable. His range was unbelievable. That all of them, they were just a great, great band.
Well, they were a band that, I mean, every single one of them had a part to play, and they all done it
Right.
amazingly. I mean, again, one of the biggest songs that Queen ever done, right, was "We Will Rock You." You know, and that was wrote by, I think, the bass guitarist John Deacon. I think the one thing, the only thing that he ever done was write that song. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that he wrote that song, and they were like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!"
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, and you got Roger Taylor, an amazing drummer. Freddie Mercury, who you will never ever hear a voice like it. You will never hear a voice like his. You know, it was
Right.
amazing. And those big iconic teeth, how he managed to sing with those teeth, it's unbelievable. He's like a giraffe, wasn't he? And then again, you know, you got Brian May and what he done with that guitar. I was watching a thing there the other day, and you know, all these guitarists use plectrums to play the guitar. He uses a coin, a little coin, and I think it's a sixpence or something like that. He's bought a load of sixpences, and he was showing us on YouTube how he plays the guitar with a coin and the range that he gets, and how he can slide across the string and get a better feeling from it. The bloke's an absolute genius, you know, and they're massive, absolutely massive. And you know, I don't know how much money they have made over the years. They're I just dread to think, you know.
And think about this: even though Freddie Mercury's passed, and he passed quite a while ago, you know, they're still out putting out their music and playing stadiums. And you know, now that they have, I think Adam Lambert did join them, or joins them for a period of time while they're on tour, because he is one of the few people who can actually sing the song and do it, you know, do it justice. But you're right, they just had a ton of hits, and their music evolved as as they continued to be together as a band, and you see that in their music. And that's, you know, that's what you want to look for any great band that's going to make your top 10 list.
Well, I mean, Radio Gaga, that's
Right.
one of the lyrics, isn't it? Our music changes through the years. And it did. I mean, what would be your most favorite song then? I know you said that the most iconic song is Bohemian Rhapsody, but what would you say that your favorite song that Queen ever did was?
I'm going to say it's Radio Gaga, and only because I mean, I didn't get to personally be there, but to see them perform at Live Aid when in it was at Wembley Stadium, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Watch that entire crowd mesmerized, where they were in complete harmony with the band, that all these people were as one. They were like one together. It was just the most amazing thing to see. I forget even how many people were there, but it was a ton of people, and it was
Yeah.
just amazing.
And can I just say, Adam Lambert, he does an amazing job. I mean, nobody could ever replace Freddie Mercury, but he comes bloody close. He does a good job.
He does. And you know, and the thing I like about Adam Lambert is he doesn't try to be Freddie Mercury. Adam Lambert's his own person. You know, he knows that to try to be Freddie Mercury is impossible. So he I don't think he tries to be. I think he tries to do justice by Freddie, but he doesn't try to imitate Freddie.
Yeah. I mean, I would say my favorite song of theirs has got to be Get Down, Make Love.
Okay.
Have you heard that one?
I'm
Get
sure I have.
down, make love.
Oh,
Get down, make love.
that's their song?
Yeah. If you
I
want to get
didn't know
high,
that.
want to get high. Yeah.
Really?
It was
I've
one,
heard that song a million times. How did I not know that was Queen's song?
it was one of their first songs. It came out years. It was like when they first
Oh,
started Get Down, Make Love, and it was an awesome track. And I liked a lot of their heavier stuff, you know, when they first come out.
right.
It was really, really, and you got Fat Bottom Girls, and you
Oh,
got,
that's a great one. Bicycles.
yeah,
Fat
and
Bottom
and
Girls.
and
My
another
favorite
song.
lyrics, I think, out of my favorite lyrics in one of their songs is Fat Bottom Girls.
And don't forget Flash Gordon, the
Yep.
theme tune for Flash Gordon. I mean, that was an amazing film and an amazing tune. I used to love that film. You know, no, an awesome band. And I mean, you're putting them down for what number? Number,
That was for number 4.
and that was going to be my number 3.
Oh,
But
okay.
because we've been talking about it, I'm not going to put them down as number three. Now I'm just going to give them respect, and it's going to be my
Okay.
3.5. I'm going to have two bands for number three. I would say my band, and this is getting really difficult now. This is really, really difficult. I would say my number three has got to be Nirvana. Um,
Nirvana. Okay.
Nirvana, because for me, I mean, it was another 90s band, and it was a new this was a new style of music, grunge, that just come out. And again, another good looking guy, Kurt Cobain, you know, the fashion had changed, the look was different. Everybody thinks that Dave Grohl was the first drummer in Nirvana, but he actually wasn't. I mean, he came in on their second album. And I mean, Dave Grohl, a drummer, who'd have thought it? You know,
Right.
and the Foo Fighters is now one of the biggest bands in the world, if not the biggest band in the world, right? And people say to me, you know, if you could see the Foo Fighters or Nirvana, who would you go and see? And for me, it would be Nirvana. Nirvana were just, again, they played very depressing songs, but they were never depressing songs to me. It was a
Right.
total change of music for me. And, you know, again, it did change the way I look at music and fashion. So I would say for me, it has to be Nirvana at number three. Well, it would have been Queen, but we've just been talking about him. So I'm going to say Nirvana.
Okay. Um, I have Nirvana down on my honorable mentions because again, you're right. I actually loved grunge music. I loved Nirvana. I loved the whole scene, even though it came well after. I don't know why. It's kind of spoke to me, even though I think it was more the music than the lyrics because
Mm.
I do even though I knew what the lyrics were saying, I wasn't really paying attention to it. But just the beat, everything about the music was just um where I was at in my head at that time, like very much what I was feeling, as far as music went. So, and
So
they had a big
would you,
impact.
you know, what, are you a fan of the Foo Fighters?
Yeah, I did. I like the Foo Fighters. I don't know. I don't get. It's like you two. It's like I get why people like you two. It just doesn't do anything for me for some reason. And Foo
No.
Fighters, I like some of their songs, but probably their most popular ones. There's nothing that grabs me, where I go, oh, that's something really powerful. That's really something I really love. I want to hear it more and more. Does that make sense?
What what I find really interesting about this whole debate here now is you've got two guys, one either side of the pond, you know, a few years between us, but not one of us have chosen U2.
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm not a U2 fan, and but you know, Bono. I think it's the fact that the political route that he went down was the reason why a lot of people didn't shine to U2. Again, they're like Marmite. You love them or you hate them. And we've got another band over here called Coldplay. Have you ever heard of Coldplay?
Oh yeah, I actually saw them in concert. They actually put on a very good concert.
Oh, they're Coldplay are very much like U2. You love them or you hate them.
Right.
But I used to hate them. I used to freaking hate Coldplay until I went and see them live. And they can do a live gig. They're really, really, really good. But again, you know, they haven't even made my top 10. And for a Brit, you know, I think it's strange that there's not Coldplay or U2 in our any of our top 10 there.
Yeah. And I liked Coldplay. I thought they put on a great concert. One of the things when we get together again is we'll have to talk about entertainers because there's people who I don't think are great singers, and and their music's okay, but I get why people like them because if they go to their concerts and see them, they'll be wowed because these are more than just singers. These are true entertainers. And one of the ones that I can tell you about is Madonna. I never thought a lot about Madonna nor her music. I thought it was catchy, it was fun and all that. I never gave her much thought. Someone got me to go to the Madonna concert and I saw why they liked her, like why they were in love with her, because she is so much more than just her voice and her song. She is a true entertainer. So I get why people, like certain acts that maybe we don't
Mm,
agree with just because we haven't seen them.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, for, Foo Fighters, you go back to the Foo Fighters. I mean, it's so sad to hear about what happened to the drummer or Taylor there, and nothing's. I mean, from the states there, what's come through about that? Did he commit suicide?
I
What was the outcome? Has there anything been said about it?
Yes, but I haven't heard anything about it since the initial report, and so I don't know what happened. Again, I don't listen to a lot of TV or radio, so they may have said something about it, and I just didn't hear it. But usually, because this is sad, I'll I would get my news from Facebook. People would start talking about it or something. But since
Mm-hmm.
I've cut my time back on Facebook, I haven't even gotten that kind of news. So
Yeah,
it wouldn't be odd for me not to hear about it.
yeah. But there you are. That would be my number three, and that would be Nirvana.
Okay.
What about you, man?
My number three is, and this pained me as well. It won't pain you, but it pains me. The Rolling Stones. I absolutely love the Rolling Stones. It's hard for me not to put them number one because their music, every song was different. Like there's so many that I just, like I don't even know if I could pick one favorite. But I love their style. I love their music. I love everything about them. And just and what they stood for. And here they still are. What are they, 90? Still out rocking, as if they're in their 20s.
Well, I mean, you're like me. We both listened to Rogan, and I think Joe Rogan was talking about Mick Jagger the other day, and the fact that when they do go out on live, he takes a lorry, his own lorry, with all his gym equipment in the back of the lorry on tour with him, and he will train 4 or 5 times a week, on his lorry when he's on in concert, and the guy is, how old is he? He's 70, 80. He's got to be.
Yeah, he's got to be. I mean, he's got to
I'm
be
not,
up there because he's been playing since the 60s, the early
yeah,
60s.
yeah.
I
And,
mean,
and and forget him, the other guys in the band, how they're still alive from the amount of drugs they've done, how they
exactly.
can actually stand up, let alone perform. Oh, it just it's just crazy.
I think that just goes to show it's all about genetics. So,
I think it must be androids. I really do. If it was a conspiracy theory out tomorrow that the Rolling Stones they're actually androids, I would be like, oh well, yeah, I kind of been expecting it now. It doesn't surprise me at all.
definitely. I mean, I think because here's the thing, Don Henley's easily in his 70s as well, and his voice is just, I mean, it's so powerful. I love his voice. But there's a difference because even though Don Henley, has his own concerts and he also plays with the Eagles, those guys are sitting on stools and they're playing strumming guitars. Mick Jagger's like running up and down the stage and back and forth and all over the place like he was, 40 years ago. Maybe
Mm,
he's not quite as energetic, but for him to be able to do that at that age and just be all over that stage and sing with the power that he does, I hand it to him.
yeah, yeah, total man. So I don't really know a lot about them, and there's people that's going to be listening to this now, and they're going to spit their coffee out or swear at me, and I don't really care. I mean, the Rolling Stones are shit hot. They're very, very talented. They're amazing, but I think I must have just skipped a generation. I think that I was around at the wrong time, and they're just a band that never really done anything for me. not saying that they're not good,
Right.
and I'm not saying that I don't respect them. It's just they've never really. There was other bands that I would rather listen to, and a prime example was what I was telling you about when I went to a festival when they were there, and they came back, and everybody was going, "Oh, you got to go, you got to go, you got to go and watch them." And I watched them do 2 songs, and then I went off and watched somebody else.
Right.
Which I haven't got a very good history with that, because I actually, one of the gigs I seen when I was at Glastonbury, there was who's the blind guy, Stevie Wonder.
I love.
I got totally wasted, and I walked off, and I went to a silent disco, and I was walking around in a silent disco rather than watching him. And I'm like, I think it was the drugs that done it, but that was probably one of my biggest mistakes in life, is that I didn't get a chance to see Stevie Wonder, and I probably never will. But I had a freaking good time. And like, that's the thing with me. What you'll find with me is that one day I'll choose one thing, the other day I'll choose another thing. It depends what mood I'm in at the time. But I went and saw Public Enemy over Rolling Stones, and Rolling Stones have never really done it for me. There's a long answer for that.
Yeah, and see, I would never even think about. I would been with your friends. I'd go, yeah, you're on your own with this one. I'm staying here with the Stones. So,
what is it? My number 2 now, is it?
Yes, it's your number 2.
Right. I'm looking at my list here now that I've made, and I've screwed up big time, because there's still 3 or 4 huge bands that anybody that's like listening to me now will be that knows me will be saying, Mark, well, how come you've chose that, but you haven't chose that? I know you. I know what you're about, and I know the music that you've listened to all your life. How come you've chosen Queen and you've not chosen these? So it's very, very difficult. And there's bands here that painfully are not even going to be in my top 10 now. But I would say for number 2 for me has to be the Smiths.
The Smiths, okay.
And it could be number 1. It could be 0.5. You know what I mean? I mean, the Smiths are an amazing band. I think, again, they were as big in America as what they were over here. I think possibly at one stage they were bigger in America than what they were over here. I've seen Morrissey live, and it's quite funny, really, because that guy gets such a bad press. I mean, he'll go to a festival or he'll go to a gig, and he will not play if that festival is got meat. Right. If he's on the stage and he can smell hot dogs and burgers wafting through the air, he won't go on stage. He's walked off stage because a festival's got meat there and stuff. And I saw Morrissey at the Plymouth Pavilions. It's a venue near me. And it's the only time I've been to a little venue where I've been frisked down by the security guard. And I'm like, what's going on here? And the guy said that in the past, people have come in with slabs of meat and chucked it on stage, and they're like, he insists that we frisk everybody down to check that there's no meat on them, right? And he done the song Meat is Murder, the Smiths did. And again, they're just an amazing band with so many stories to tell. And I don't know what else to say. I just think they're an absolutely fantastic band. They're a massive band that came out of the UK in the 80s. And, you got Johnny Marr that's still doing amazing things, an amazing guitarist. And, they could have quite easily been number 1 for me, but they have to be my number 2.
Okay, well, I know the Smiths were a big deal over here. It never grabbed me. It never spoke to me. I get why people enjoy the Smiths and why they were a big deal. That was something that skipped past me. I just didn't get it. And that's not to say that the music isn't great or that they weren't as powerful. It's saying that sometimes I'm clueless about things. So, and this is probably one of those things, since there's a great number of people who feel the way you do.
I think it was probably, it was after your time,
right?
If that makes any sense. I mean, I think that it would it would be like me listening to something that's successful now. I would listen to it and I would like it, but I think that you kind of had to be a teenager. You had to be nearly a teen at that time when they were out to appreciate them as much as what I do. Think
Yeah.
possibly.
And you make a great point. I think that does, because music tends to be so much more important to us, especially when we're younger. Especially in our teenage years. The music that we grow up with is very near and dear to our heart and has a lot of meaning. Where, once you're in your 30s or 40s or whatever, it doesn't have the same impact that it once did when you were 15, 16 years old, or even 17, So
Yeah.
yeah, you make a very good point there.
What about your number two, man? It's getting close now, isn't it?
Yes,
What
it
have
is.
you picked number two?
This could very easily be my number one, but I'm sure you'll be able to guess my number one, since I'm going to give you my number two, which is Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd. I loved Pink Floyd. I never did drugs, but I could imagine like what it would do to people who did drugs and who were hallucinating and listening to Pink Floyd. I go, this would be such a mind fuck. Like the way
Yeah.
they did things, their lyrics, their music, again, all these different sounds that they brought into music. I just thought there's just too much to talk about that makes them such a great band. And to me, they had the greatest lyric in all of rock music. Do you know what that is? Or what I believe that is?
No, go for it.
It's from the Wish You Were Here song.
Yeah, I know what song you're talking about, but I don't know it well enough to know the lyric.
We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl year after
Yeah, I
year.
knew, I knew, I
Wish you
knew
were here.
exactly what song it was, but I didn't know the exact words. Say it again. Go on. What was the lyrics?
We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl year after year. Wish you were
What
here.
what a tune.
It's
Yeah,
again, to me, they're genius in their music. They were so different from everybody else, and this is what I loved about the '70s. Everybody had their own sound. Everybody had their own music, and you could enjoy all of it. We had such an array of music that was so amazing that you would be foolish to say, well, I only listen to this kind, because you would miss out on all this amazing music that was out there if you did that. And in the '70s, we didn't have to do that. And that's why I constantly say the '70s was the greatest time for music, because you were exposed to everything. I know it's a slight exaggeration, but you were exposed to all different styles of music on one radio station, instead of just a certain genre that they play, like many of
yeah.
them do nowadays.
Pink Floyd. I can't believe I've not fallen in love with his Pink Floyd as much as what I should do, and I think that this is going back to what we was just saying again, a generation thing. I think if I was 5, 6 years older than what I am now, I would have. The amount of times I've been round a mate's flat after a party or whatnot, and somebody's been skinning up, we've had a joint, and and Comfortably Numb's come on, or that track that you was just talking about, and we've just sat there almost comatose, stoned out of your head, listening to those tracks, and the backing music and the sounds and the noises that you can hear. And again, The Wall, was it the film called The
Right.
Wall, wasn't it? I
Yep.
mean, I've never seen it. I've never seen it. And I'm like, when we finish this podcast, I'm going to go and listen to that song that you was just talking about, because it's a fantastic tune. You get a decent set of headphones, put them
Right.
on, and just close your eyes. What a tune! What a tune! And I've said it for years that it will happen one day. I will sit down and I will just listen to all of Pink Floyd stuff, and I will become one of these guys that when I'm about 50, I will start celebrating Pink Floyd, I reckon. Do you know what I mean? I'm 44 now, and I've appreciated the music and listened to the music, but I've never really fallen in love with them. And if we have this debate again in 5-10 years time, I'll be like, oh my God, yes, Pink Floyd, this shit out. Do you know what I mean? An amazing band, amazing again. And like I say, they're not in my top 10. And just simply because I've never really listened to them enough, but they are amazing.
I think when you have a chance to really listen to their stuff and listen to it, like you said, with a really good set of headphones, or, you got to think back in the day, in the early 70s to mid 70s, we had something called quadraphonic stereo. And what that was four speakers where you would have four individual speakers that had sound coming from four different places. So you could have the guitar on one speaker, you could have a piano on another speaker, a drum on one speaker. You could have it, they could separate music like that. Now, it didn't go over well because one, quadraphonic stereo systems were expensive, and I think it was more expensive for the radio stations um, to set their radio stations up for, and to make the music. It required bands willing to break up their music into different speakers and creating the sound. Pink Floyd is one of those groups who I think, had quadraphonic stereo systems stuck around, would have been able to make amazing music with the four speakers, because just what they did with stereo, with the two sounds and the hearing the guitar or radio sounding like it's broken, and then all of a sudden this guitar comes out of the left speaker, from where you had the broken radio playing on the right speaker, and just playing with the way sounds, how they could create different sounds and blend it in with music was just genius.
I'm really excited because that's what I'm going to be doing in an hour's time. I'm going to be sitting down. I'm going to go to work tomorrow. I'm going to sit down and put my headphones on, and that's it. I'm going to listen to that. What's the name of that track that you took the lyrics from?
It's called "Wish You Were Here," and that's the name of the album, "Wish You Were Here" as well. And it has a lot of like "Have a Cigar," that which comes on, and you hear this elevator, and that's a great song. There's a lot of great songs on that album that you.
And at the beginning of that song, you got the guitar bit that it kicks off with that guitar, haven't you? I mean, that's iconic in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And again, when you get it figured, this is the first time we've ever heard music, done like this. And so, again, their impact on the music industry itself was phenomenal. So that's my number 2, and could easily be number 1 for me.
Well,
here we are.
My number 1, right? And can I just say, I cannot believe that I haven't picked a band in the UK called Suede. I mean, I would love to do this again in 2 or 3 years' time, and I have a chance to sit down. You sprung this on me, and I've just had 20 bands here in front of me that I wrote down, and I've been picking them through. And if I could redo this again, there's so much that I would change in now. Like, as a big band, we were talking about Britpop earlier on, and one of the biggest Britpop bands in the 90s was a band called the Suede. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, with Brett Anderson. And they were massive for me. It was quite strange because early 90s, that was the first album cover where there was two blokes kissing on the front. The album was called Nude. And there was some amazing tracks on there. And a lot of it was about, guys having sex with guys. And that was the first time I really ever took any notice of, gay people,
Right.
And I would say to you, right, get out there and listen to the album Nude by Suede. And how that is not in my top 10, I don't know. I fucked up. Another band was Portishead.
I've heard of them.
Oh, well, there's a lots of tracks that they've done, Dummy, and all that lot that you'll have heard in the States. Another band are called Kasabian. How they haven't made it in my top 5. I've seen them 2 times. A big rock band, absolutely amazing. And I've got 2 bands here now to choose from. One of them is Oasis, and the other is the verve. Um,
I think I remember hearing you speak about the Verve.
yeah, and one of these two bands here now, because I choose the other one of them isn't even going to be in my top 10
Yeah.
because I've messed up. I'm going to go with my gut, my heart, and my number one is the Verve.
Okay.
Um,
I figured it would be since that's the one you were talking about before.
I absolutely love everything about the Verve. The first album that I ever listened to, it came out in the 90s. It was called Urban Hymns, and it's got that iconic track on there, Bittersweet Symphony. Do you know that? Do you know what that which one that is?
No,
It goes
no.
and actually it was taken that there's been a big rift for years and years and years with the Rolling Stones and the Verve, and the Rolling Stones claimed that Richard Ashcroft took um, the backing music from the Rolling Stones, a track that they done,
Oh, really?
right? So every time that song was ever played on the radio, and I'm talking this was a massive, massive iconic tune that's still being played by thousands and thousands and thousands of times a year in the UK, 20 years on. The Verve have never made a penny from it. It
Really?
wasn't until last year where Mick Jagger said, look, okay, we appreciate the song. We're going to now give you the rights to make some money from it. And it's called Bittersweet Symphony, right? And I want you to listen to Bittersweet Symphony,
Okay.
right? And I want you to see if you can work out which track from the Rolling Stones it is.
Okay. I'll do that.
See if you can listen. It's the backing music. See if you can work it out, and then just go on, just for shits and giggles, go on there and see which song. If you go on YouTube and type in "Bittersweet Symphony Rolling Stones," it will tell you all about it, and you can make your own conclusion. But I mean, Urban Hymns, it was a massive, massive album. Bittersweet Symphony, it's the only song in the world that they would have made millions and millions and millions and millions of pounds from and not made a penny from. Um, it brings back so many memories of me and my best mate in the car having a smoke, sat for hours and hours listening. When we get together today, now me and my mate George, we still listen to songs from that. There's a song that they've done called History. I want you to write that down as well. The Verve, History. Listen to that. They just honestly, it's going to be difficult to talk about this because you've not heard of any of their stuff. But just I urge you to get out there to your American friends that's listening to this. Just check out the Verve, because the lead singer Richard Ashcroft, they started off their career just basically getting totally wasted on acid and then just jamming, and it went from there. And the lead singer Richard Ashcroft is such a talented guy. And to me, they're absolute legends, and they make some amazing music. And they're no longer together. Richard Ashcroft, they all fell out, and Richard Ashcroft's making his own music to this day. And I can't believe I've chosen them over Oasis, and I haven't even got Oasis in the top 10 there. But yeah, for me, number one, I'm going with it. It's got to be the Verve.
Okay. Very good. So I will definitely check those out, and I will see if that song is anywhere near a Rolling Stones song. If it's as obvious as like when Vanilla Ice stole the beat to Under Pressure and tried to say it wasn't the same. It's like, oh my god, you're embarrassing. So
Yeah,
we'll see if
yeah.
it's that close or if it's something where you go, oh yeah, I can kind of see, but I'll let you know.
Do it, do it. And I can't believe as well that I haven't even chose, looking at it now, a band over in the UK with just trying to think. No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. Not even going to. Not going to say it. There's loads and loads of bands that people are going to that know me are going to say, "How have you not chosen
Well,
them?"
so here's what I'm gonna do. After I get done telling you who my number one is, I'm gonna let you
I
go
know.
down.
I know who your number one is. I know it is.
All right, hold on. Let's see if I can. Here we go. Let's see if you're right.
all I'm going to say
Let's see if
is I know who they are.
okay. Go ahead. Who do you think it is?
Who do I think it is? It's I reckon that your number one is the Who.
No.
Oh, right, okay, no problem.
Good choice. Yeah,
well, if that's the case, I can't believe that the Who are not in your top 10.
it was between them or these guys.
Led Zeppelin.
Yes. And to me, Led Zeppelin is probably the most iconic band out there. They put out music in a style that, again, unlike anything else that was ever done before. And it just, how do Robert Plant's, how do you have a singer like that? And could they have put him to any better use than they did? The music that they wrote, it was just, everything about them was powerful. I loved everything about them. I
So
know that
did,
sounds
did
vague,
you
but sorry.
did you have hair like them once upon a time?
I can only wish. I wish I had the hair they still have nowadays. I saw Ann and Nancy Wilson from Heart do the Stairway to Heaven at the Kennedy's, what is it, the Kennedy Honors at the Kennedy Center for honoring artists, and they were honoring Led Zeppelin. And Ann and Nancy Hart did Stairway to Heaven, did an amazing job. And I think it was Robert Plant that was like and had tears from from them singing it. It was just such a great job they did. But that has to be my number one band. Um, it's not, they're not even my number one favorite band, because again, I would put Pink Floyd over them as for that reason. But I think as far as uh, all of it together, vocals, harmonies, lyrics, the music, the impact, I put them number one, just for that reason.
Again, I don't really know much about Led Zeppelin. And I think that's going to be another band that I'm going to sit down one day and listen to. I know, unlike the other bands that you've talked about, everybody knows Led Zeppelin songs. Do you know what I mean? There's loads of songs that they've done that I know. We all know the big riffs they've done, all that sort of stuff. But I kind of think that I missed a generation of them. If I'd been 5-10 years older, I would be head over heels in love with them. But again, Led Zeppelin, I don't really know much about them, to be honest with you, and I feel like I should do. There's the music that I love. I just feel that I should know more about them. I'm surprised that you haven't chosen any of the Who in the top 10 there at all.
Yeah, the Who again is the Who is actually the number one name on my honorable mentions. So they were, it's like you said, you have the Verb and Oasis. One of them makes it, and one of them doesn't make the top 10. That's not fair, but that's just how it worked out. So, yeah, the Who could have easily been in there. I just, it was a hard choice, but yeah, I went with Led Zeppelin. The funny thing is, I just totaled this up. I wanted to see how many of your favorite bands would be from England and how many of them would be from the US. And yours is 5 and 5. Mine also is 5 and 5. So, I think it's very cool that we were able to be exposed to music from both sides of the pond, and have that, for these bands to have the same influence over there as they did here, and vice versa. So it just shows how great these bands really were.
Yeah. It's difficult, the question I'm going to ask you now, because we're getting older. But what do you think of music in 2022? Has music gone to shit? What bands are out there at the moment that turn you on? Because for me, there is no decent bands out there. There's just no decent music. I just feel that the whole music industry is slowly but surely dying.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like for I think for guys like us, music has to have instruments. I don't want a beatbox. I don't want artificial sounds. I want I wonder when I say artificial, I was going to go guitar's an artificial sound. I mean, I want real musical instruments to be played. It's one of the reasons why I love bands like Earth, Wind, and Fire in Chicago, because these bands were two of the most popular bands to have horns in their band and have horn section. And I think lots of bands should have done that. But when you no longer have a guitar or you no longer have a drum, you no longer have you just have some guy singing to some digital beats and music that you've put in there. None of it's organic. It's not, it can't be the same. I don't
Mm.
think.
What band have you been in seen live that you was really disappointed with?
Hmm. I I saw Creed because someone talked me into it, and I was like, eh, it wasn't a big fan. So it's like they're okay, but I don't even know if I should say I was disappointed because I didn't expect a whole lot from them because I
Mm.
wasn't a big fan of theirs to begin with. But that was probably the most disappointing concert I went to.
I saw two bands that I really loved that just again I walked away as just like there was one that I walked away at halfway through because it was shit. There's a band called Primal Scream. Have you ever heard of Primal
I
Scream?
have heard of them. I don't know their stuff, but I know I've heard their stuff because I've heard of them.
And the other one was Smashing Pumpkins. I've seen the Smashing Pumpkins, and they were very, very just average. And I walked off and watched Dinosaur Jr., which is supposed to be one of the loudest bands of all time. And they were very, very fucking loud. They were very loud. And I think they're an American band, Dinosaur Jr. I'm pretty sure they are. But yeah, again, Smashing Pumpkins. I used to love them and just did not do it for me at all. I walked away very, very disappointed.
Huh. Because my best friend, he went to a Smashing Pumpkins concert back when he was younger, and I don't know, maybe it was because it was his first concert, but he loved it. So maybe he didn't know what to expect, and maybe it being his first concert, no matter who it was, he was going to love it. So
So if there was a band that that you could watch, if I was to give you tickets now to go and see a band, whether they're dead or alive or whatever, if they had to reform, who would you go and watch?
huh. I would probably say, because I would say I'd want to see Queen because I never got to see Freddie Mercury. I would love to see Queen.
Mm.
I've seen the Eagles 4 or 5 times. I'd tell you I'd go see them anytime. They're just amazing. But I would, for someone who I've never seen before, who I would really appreciate, I would love to see Freddie Mercury with Queen. I think that would be phenomenal. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But and this is controversial in itself. I would say the Prodigy. Have you ever heard of the
Prodigy. I
Prodigy?
have heard of them. Again, I'm not familiar with this stuff, but I've heard of them.
Um, I had a chance to go and see them. I had tickets, and for one reason or another, I couldn't go and watch them. And then 2 weeks later, the lead singer died, Keith
Oh,
Flint, and he took his own life. And they were a dance act in the '90s, done loads and loads of amazing songs, and never got the opportunity to see them live. And loads of my mates have all seen them live, and I've missed out on that one. Again, it's a difficult question, but I mean, you really, really had me thinking on this episode tonight, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I really, really have.
well, good. I'm glad you have. Now, just to save face with your friends, why don't you mention your honorable mentions so so you can tell your friends when they go, why did you mention these guys? Why did you can say I did. They were in my honorable mentions. There's just too many to choose from. And so and I didn't give you much time to think about it. So and so
Well,
you did the best that you could on such a short notice.
well, the bands that I didn't put in the top 10 that I should have. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so your honorable mentions, whoever they might be.
Yeah, no. Well, like I say, there was this. There was. I did say it. There was Suede, and there was um, Blur, and there was Kasabian and Portishead. EMF. There's a band called EMF. They done a song called Unbelievable. Um, I mean, I listened to them for hours and hours and hours and hours growing up, and they're not even in my top 10. And Stereophonics, there's loads of English bands that I listen to daily that didn't even slip in my top 10, and I feel a little bit like I shit the bed. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I've done myself a bad one on this one. But yeah. How
Well,
about you?
I think you saved face with the fact that you did make them honorable mentions. So, as far as my honorable mentions, I have the Who, Metallica,
Yes, Metallica.
ACDC. Yeah, Metallica. You again, that was a hard choice not to have them in the top 10. Um, ACDC, who I absolutely love. It was hard not to put them in the top 10. The Doors,
Yeah.
uh, Nirvana, Public Enemy, and Radiohead I'd put in there just simply because I like their music. I wasn't impacted because again I'm older. I wasn't impacted like I could have been had I been younger, but I understood their importance and the impact that they had. So that's why they're on my honorable mention as well.
Cool.
Well,
Sweet.
that was to me, this is a fun episode because again, it's two different perspectives. And again, it doesn't mean that you speak for all of England or I speak for all of the US because I guarantee you there are going to be people who are pissed at us for leaving someone out and or because they don't like where we place them or whatever. And so, that's the thing. It's like so I'm going to encourage everybody who's listening or watching to put down go to the YouTube channel that we have, the Powers Project, and comment. Leave a comment. Who is your favorite band of all time? Who did Mark and I leave out that's a sin that you could just like you should never talk about music again because you idiots left this band out. So
That's
tell us
another
where
band.
we messed up.
That's another band. That song that you just said there, it's a sin. Which is the Pet Shop Boys. They've done a song called "A Sin." And they are amazing band.
Yeah,
From do you like do you like them?
yeah, I like the Pet Shop Boys.
Pet Shop
Again, not
Boys.
they came along, but in the mid to late '80s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of groups that came out there right in the mid to late '80s that I really enjoyed. Like even Breathe, I enjoyed Breathe. Um,
Oh, I just remembered another band, Duran Duran.
oh, of course, yeah. In fact, I was going to say something to you about it, and I couldn't think of their name at the time because their poster popped in my head, but I couldn't think of their name. But yeah, Duran Duran had a great impact back in the '90s as well.
I've seen them live,
Oh,
and they were fucking fantastic. I mean, to have a name called Simon Le Bon,
yeah.
Simon the Good, that's just a brilliant. Absolutely love it. But yeah, there we are. I mean, I can just keep. We could sit here for the next hour, 2 hours, and just ream out decent
Yeah.
bands.
Well, we'll do this again. We'll.
Yeah.
There's plenty to do, like individual singers and, like I said, entertainers and things of that nature. And I'm looking forward to hearing because it's great to hear that that even though we're there's probably about 15 years difference with us, um, that I'm still aware of your music, a lot of the music you grew up with, and why it was so impactful. You obviously know my music as well, especially when it comes to Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin stuff. But it's nice to say, look, there's no right or wrong. It is about the era that you grew up in and who's going to have more impact in your life, so enjoy this. That's what this is for, fun. So
Yeah. I mean, I've been podcasting for like 4 years, and I quite often say that it's changed my life, podcasting, because you know once upon a time I was a guy that I had my views and they were my views, and I wouldn't listen to anybody else's views. I was very blinkered, very central.
right.
And since I've done my podcast, I'm 204 episodes in, and I've had so many different people re-educate me and talk to me. You just don't realize how powerful podcasting is. The amount of podcasts that I listen to that I've learned so much from. And can I just say there as well that your podcast, the Powers Project, that this is now, it's one that I've come into the last few weeks, and I've listened to your episodes, recently, and you're a very good interviewer, and I love what your podcast is about. And I mean, your last episode with Ian Pilbeam, was it?
Yes, he's over there with you.
Yeah, I mean, he was talking about traveling the world and all the places he's been to, and then the episode before that with Richie West, the gay porn star.
Yes.
I mean, and I was just like, how am I going to be able to compete in conversation with these? These guys have done stuff and all this sort of stuff, and I'm just, a UK postie that's done 204 episodes. But I look, mate, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come on your show and have a chat to you, because, like I say, I really do enjoy your podcast, and it's I've done 204 episodes, and I've only done 4 episodes this year of the Marc Jeffery Show, and I've kind of like lost the love of podcasting, because I've got so many hobbies that I'm doing at the moment, and so much I want to spread my butter on 14 pieces of toast, if you know what I mean. I've only got one piece of toast to spread it on. But listening to your podcast and you chatting to people about your loves and all the stuff that interests you, it's got my backside in gear to get, back on the podcasting scene. So that was just a round thing to just say thank you very much for your podcast and just inspiring me to get back into the hot seat and chatting to people again, mate.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. And I'm going to tell I'm glad that you're getting back into it, because the episodes I've heard of yours, I enjoy. You're such a natural at this. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't do it. To me, you're keeping people from benefiting from your podcast, because there's something about you. I don't even know how to say it. It's your voice, it's your demeanor, it's the way you talk. Again, the whole reason why I wanted you on my show is because I had such a good time on your show. I was like, you're so comfortable to talk to, and you can talk. I know I can talk to you about anything, and not worry about you getting upset or something. We even talked about something controversial. I know that you're like you're like I am, that we look at things from different perspectives. We grow from learning from other people.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's what podcasting is all about. And 204 shows is a lot. That's more than I have. And I'm going to tell you, you were kicking butt there. So don't stop now. That's all I got to say.
I'm going down the route. I mean, I've got an interview. I'm interviewing a young lady next week, and it's going to be my first episode that I'm recording live on StreamYard, which will go out live on YouTube. And, I come from a radio broadcasting background. I used to do a show called Remember in the 90s. And, so I'm used to going live, and it is quite, nerve wracking doing a podcast, but to do it live in front of people and people asking you questions and stuff like that is going to be a whole new challenge for me. So I'm really looking forward to that. So can I just say to any of your listeners there that to come over on YouTube, and my new YouTube channel is called Marc Jeffery Presents. And I'm just going to be getting loads and loads of people in with different stories to tell from different backgrounds, but it's going to be people that I want to talk to. If it's my best mate, I'll get him on. If it's a politician, I'll get them on. People that I want to talk to. That's the route that I'm going down, and I'm going to be just conversing with just loads and loads of interesting people and just having a fucking good laugh, So that's what's coming out new, and that's all down to you, man. That's what I'm saying. You got me back into thinking about, which direction I need to go down. And podcasts, now I've gone away from it a little bit, but it's always been my love, and it always will be. And I'm just getting back in the hot seat now and finding some new guests.
There you go. And that's the thing. It's like, you can tell that you love what you're doing. Like, I love what I'm doing, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else other than here talking to you right now. And again, I'm having the kind of guests, that I want to have on, that I enjoy talking to. And so that's why you're on my show, because I enjoy talking to you, and I just think you're a great guy. So, and I look forward to having you on the show in the near future as well. Just think about this. One day, somebody might have a new podcast or a new YouTube channel 20 years from now, and they're going to go, so who are your favorite podcasters? Joe Rogan, Marc Jeffery, Kurt Powers.
There's fingers crossed, man. When you just love to do this full time, just talk to people full time.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm getting to, is to just talk to people full time. I want to travel the world. I want to come over to England and do a show with you, like set up the equipment and do a show with you, together, and meet people. It's like this is the first step, is talking to people and meeting them. Now I want to physically meet them, and that's where I'm going to, so where I can travel to Germany, or I can travel to Switzerland, or Hong Kong, or wherever I want to go, and meet the people that I'm going to talk to, instead of just through Zoom or a StreamYard.
That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Well, let's just hope one day they bring out these time machines, or these, what do they call them, where you can just say, right, let's go to Kurt's house now, and I'm there in the room with you, kind of thing. What do they call them? Teleportations, isn't it?
Yeah.
It make things a hell of a lot easier.
That would be great, and probably a lot cheaper than a plane flight right now. So, well, listen, Mark, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure. It was just as much fun as I knew it was going to be. So, thank you for your time and for sharing, because I know that was hard. So,
now you're welcome, man. And like I say, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come on your great show. Awesome.
Thank you. Oh, and real quick, I know you already gave your YouTube channel. Where else can people find you before, if they're looking for your podcast, if they're looking for your social media, where can they find you?
On social media, Instagram, look up the Marc Jeffery podcast. Actually, I'm feeling a little bit ashamed of myself. I can't remember if it's the Marc Jeffery podcast or the Marc Jeffery show on Instagram. I think it's the Marc Jeffery show on Instagram. From the podcast, go on your podcast directories and just type in the Marc Jeffery show on Google or your directories. It'll pop up. I think I'm pretty much everywhere on the podcast scene. Just type in the Marc Jeffery show, but it's Mark with a C, MarcJeffrey, the Marc Jeffery show. And then, like I say, head on over to YouTube. I've only got 35 followers on there at the moment, but I'm hoping to get that up to 350 very soon. But yeah, and that's Marc Jeffery Presents, and like I say, we're gonna have some great guests on there coming up very, very soon. So yeah, sweet. That's just type in Marc Jeffery. I'm sure I'll pop up. I'm the ugly guy with the glasses. You're not supposed to laugh.
Well, folks, that's going to be our show. Go check out Marc Jeffery. Go check out his YouTube channel. Go check out his podcast. Of course, as always, I'll have the links posted below. So if you happen to be out driving or something, don't try to type this in. I'll have all listed below for you. So you can just, when you get home or you're at a stoplight, you can just click on the link and not have to worry about causing an accident. All right. So, all right. Until next time, as I always say, take care, be safe, and love yourself so you can love others. Bye.